During the era of general struggle for independence in Africa, leaders who promoted Pan-Africanism were mostly regarded as anti-West. In this video, we re-examine the atrocities of the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States in Africa right from the beginning of the struggle for independence from colonial rule. We will look at how the agency systematically undermined the governments of President Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Patrice Lumumba of the Congo, and assisted in the arrest of Nelson Mandela and kept him out of circulation for the next 30 years. Were they trying to recolonize Africa? Welcome to this edition on History Media, your in-depth history channel. While you enjoy this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe if you have not done so already. Thank you. In 1958, about 1 year after it gained independence from colonial rule, Ghana hosted a conference of African leaders. This was the first such gathering to ever take place on the continent. At the invitation of Ghana's newly elected Prime Minister Kwame Nkrumah, more than 300 leaders from 28 territories across Africa attended. Among the attendees was Patrice Lumumba of the still Belgian Congo and Frantz Fanon, who was living in the then French Algeria. They were determined to chart a new course for their homelands and the entire continent. In doing this, however, the host wanted his guests to remember the danger that lies ahead of them. He said, "Do not let us also forget that colonialism and imperialism may come to us yet in different guise, not necessarily from Europe." In fact, those agents that Nkrumah was afraid of were already present. Not long after the events began, Ghanaian police arrested a journalist who had been hiding in one of the conference rooms while apparently trying to record a closed breakout section. It would be discovered later that the journalist was actually working for a CIA front organization. Many others were, however, represented at the event. But why was Ghana the focus of the agency? Well, Ghana's appeal to the agency was based merely on its place in history. It was the first African nation to gain independence in the 1957 and the homeland of Kwame Nkrumah. Nkrumah was by far the most widely respected advocate of African self-determination at that time. So, Ghana as a nation was therefore a source of intrigue. Soon after Ghana, the Congo stepped out of its colonial shackles in 1960. Because of its size, its position near Southern Africa's bastion of white leadership, and reserves of high-quality uranium at the Shimkolobwe mine in Katanga province, the country soon became the next focus of the agency's attention and interference in Africa. This is a turning point in the history of Africa, Nkrumah told Ghana's National Assembly during a visit from Congolese Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba a few weeks into the Congo's independence. He continued, "If we allow the independence of the Congo to be compromised in any way by the imperialist and capitalist forces, we shall expose the sovereignty and independence of all Africa to grave danger." This statement suggests that Nkrumah possessed an acute understanding of the threat and of the people behind the threat. Just months after his speech, Patrice Lumumba was assassinated by a Belgian and Congolese firing squad, opening the door to decades of pro-Western tyranny in the country, led by the brutal Mobutu Sese Seko. Lumumba's killing is recognized as one of the low points of African independence, yet a lack of documented evidence makes it possible for partisan investigators to downplay the role of the CIA. It is a failure of accountability that had allowed the agency to appear blameless and reinforce a fatalistic view of African history. It was then portrayed as if the assassination of an elected official was just another terrible thing that just happened to a people who were completely not prepared for the challenge of independence. However, recent documented evidence suggests that the CIA was actually one of the chief architects of the plot. Just days after Lumumba's visit to Ghana, Larry Devlin, the CIA's leading man in the Congo, warned his bosses of a vague takeover plot involving the Soviet Union, Ghanaians, Guineans, and the local Communist Party. According to him, it was difficult to determine major influencing factors for the takeover plot. Despite a complete lack of evidence, he was certain that the decisive period when the Congo would align itself with the Soviet Union was not far off. Soon after, President Eisenhower verbally ordered the CIA to assassinate Lumumba. However, the CIA's agent did not in the end man the firing squad to kill Lumumba. But researchers believe that that distinction is minor when you consider everything else the agency did to assist in the murder. So, the CIA invented and disseminated the bogus conspiracy plot of a pro-Soviet takeover in the Congo and leveraged its multitude of sources in Katanga to provide intelligence to Lumumba's enemies, making his capture possible. They also helped to deliver Patrice Lumumba to the Katangan prison where he was held before his execution. Recent declassified expense report indicates that Devlin, the station chief, ordered one of his agents to visit the prison not long before the bullets were fired. So, what did he go there to do? Was it to order the execution? Please leave your thoughts in the comment section. But when Nkrumah heard of Lumumba's assassination, he felt it in a very keen and personal way. However, horrifying as the news was to him, the Ghanaian statesman was hardly surprised. While stories on African independence frequently portray Nkrumah and his contemporaries as paranoid and hopelessly idealistic, reading their remarks with a pile of evidence of CIA wrongdoing reveals how fear and idealism were totally realistic responses to the challenges of the day. Nkrumah's concept of African unity was not born out of naivety and inexperience. It was a necessary reaction to a determined campaign to divide and weaken the continent. In Nkrumah's own country, Ghana, the United States government and the CIA appears not to have pursued a course of outright assassination. Or maybe I would say, unlike Lumumba, Nkrumah was lucky. A state visit to Beijing saved his life when in his absence the military coup took place. But the CIA had acted in other ways to undermine the Ghanaian leader, leading to the coup. They often justified their ploys with the same kinds of paternalistic realization that the British had used before them. Those efforts reached their nadir in 1964 when the United States Department's West African specialist sent a memo to G. Mennen Williams, the head of the Department of African Affairs, titled Proposed Action Program for Ghana. The United States, it said, should start making intensive efforts involving psychological warfare and other means to diminish support for Nkrumah within Ghana and nurture the conviction among the Ghanaian people that their country's welfare and independence necessitate his removal. In another file from that year, an official from Britain's Commonwealth Relations Office mentions a plan, ostensibly approved at the highest level of the Foreign Service, for covert and unattributable attacks on Nkrumah. The level of coordination between governments within and outside the United States might have shocked Nkrumah, who until the end of his life was at least willing to believe the CIA was a rogue agency, accountable to no one, not even the United States president. Recent research dispelled any doubt that the CIA did grave harm to Africa in its early days of independence. Interestingly, the damage done by the CIA was often violent and deadly. However, while several examples of how the CIA and other agencies weakened African regimes often violently abounds, the CIA's overall goal in Africa, aside from denying uranium and allies to the Soviet Union, remains a mystery. The huge resources and the flexibility to do nearly anything they wanted in the name of fighting communism gave them a disproportionate impact on African history. Although their numbers never matched those of the colonial agencies they ostensibly replaced. It has been established that the CIA conspired with businessmen in both the Congo and Ghana who stood to gain from pro-Western African administration. However, far from being a systematic technique of extraction, the agency's plans for Africa appear muddled with contradictions. That is especially true in the aftermath of Lumumba's assassination. Since most secret files and documents have not been declassified, a full account of the behind the scenes may still be awaited. But Records that have been pried from the agency's hands reveal details of a multitude of CIA aerial operations in the Congo involving planes owned by the agency's front companies and pilots who were themselves CIA personnel. During a time of instability, the agency appears to be everywhere at once. Susan Williams, the author of White Malice, states, "However, it is a confusing situation in which the CIA appear to have been riding several horses in different directions at the same time. The CIA supported Katangan secessionist President Moise Tshombé's war on the United Nations, the United Nations mission in the Congo, and the Congolese Air Force, the government's air arm in Leopoldville. As contradictory as these attempts appear to be, it is clear that they all contributed to the goal of keeping the entire Congo under American influence and guarding the Shonkolobo mine against Soviet incursion." In South Africa, Nelson Mandela was also spared. However, he was imprisoned for most of the next 30 years. His arrest in South Africa in 1962 under the Suppression of Communism Act was based on information provided by the CIA. We will look at the travels of Mandela in subsequent videos. The CIA did so much to undermine the African continent during the early years of independence as the European colonial powers, if not wars. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Click here to watch African leaders that were assassinated for refusing to accept Western policies imposed on them. Remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It will go a long way to assist us. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.